What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Power Gamers Tactics Room. I'm your host, Bill Braun Bafflestone, and today we will be having an episode of my Showdown series, where we look at two comparable abilities and determine which one is better. Today, we're going to be looking at Hypnotic Pattern versus Slow. So these are two of the third-level wizard control spells, and there are a lot of really great third-level wizard spells. You can't have them all. Now, there are other control spells available at this level, such as Sleet Storm, Stinking Cloud, or Major Image, but I think Hypnotic Pattern and Slow are similar enough and are redundant enough with each other that you're probably not going to want to have both. I mean, if you do have both, great, but you have to make some hard decisions in this game, and I personally found myself having to choose between Hypnotic Pattern and Slow. So let's take a look. I have put the descriptions of the spells on the screen, and we can compare them side by side. Right away, we see that they both require one action to cast and have a 120-foot range, so no advantage to either in those departments. However, when we look at components, we see that Hypnotic Pattern has a significant advantage. It doesn't require a verbal component. So that means you can cast it under conditions of silence, and you can cast it from hidden without revealing your position. That's fantastic. I personally like to leverage hiding quite heavily, so it's extremely valuable to me to have spells that don't have verbal components, and there really aren't that many. So really big advantage here for Hypnotic Pattern. Then when we look at duration, it's a little bit more complicated. They both last for 1 minute, but once Hypnotic Pattern sticks, they don't get any further saving throws. Slow, on the other hand, allows the target a saving throw every round. So that definitely is in Hypnotic Pattern's advantage. However, Hypnotic Pattern does have two end conditions. The targets can't take damage, and they can potentially be awakened by their colleagues. However, I don't think that outweighs the advantage of not having to make any further saving throws, so I do give a slight edge to Hypnotic Pattern in terms of duration. Then we are going to look at area of effect. This is also a little complicated. Slow affects 64 squares, whereas Hypnotic Pattern affects 36 squares, so about twice as many squares affected. However, Slow does have a maximum of 6 creatures, whereas Hypnotic Pattern could theoretically affect up to 36 creatures. The last thing we need to consider about area of effect is that Hypnotic Pattern affects every creature within its area of effect, whereas Slow allows you to choose the targets, so friendly fire is not a consideration. So this is a nuanced decision, but I personally give a slight edge here to Slow because the fact that it doesn't incur friendly fire, I think, is really fantastic, and I don't really think that too often you're going to be able to get more than 6 creatures affected by a Hypnotic Pattern. Then we look at the impact of the spells. And here, Hypnotic Pattern is a clear winner. If it sticks, it inflicts Charmed Condition, Incapacitation, and Speed 0. Slow inflicts a stack of impressive debuffs, but all of them put together aren't as good as Incapacitation. So, very heavy advantage here for Hypnotic Pattern. But then we look at the immunities. Hypnotic Pattern inflicts the Charmed Condition. That means there are a great number of creatures that are outright immune to this spell, such as fiends, undead, constructs, oozes. I mean, there's a lot. Whereas Slow affects every creature in the game. So that is a huge win for Slow, as opposed to Hypnotic Pattern. And then finally, in terms of obscurement. Sometimes you will be in conditions of obscurement. Perhaps you're leveraging it yourself, or perhaps your enemies have inflicted it upon you. But in such a case, Hypnotic Pattern will not help you because it requires line of sight, whereas Slow does work under conditions of obscurement, so it gets the advantage here. So those are the metrics, and if we look at them, they're fairly comparable. So I don't have a rigorous mechanical way of evaluating these things. I think you need to use your intuition a little bit to figure these things out. But the way I look at it is over the course of 1,000 battles, which one of these spells is going to help me the most? And when I look at it under those terms, I have to give the edge to Slow. Because out of 1,000 battles, absolutely Hypnotic Pattern is going to have a bigger impact in some of them, and it will outright win you some of them. But in several hundred of those battles, Hypnotic Pattern is not going to help me at all. There is going to be obscurement on the field. The creatures will be immune or resistant. My colleagues will be in the area of effect. And in those cases, Hypnotic Pattern is just occupying a slot in my prep list that is not helping me whatsoever, whereas Slow is not going to have as big an impact in some of those battles, but is going to help me in all of them. Now, I personally have both Hypnotic Pattern and Slow in my spell book, but I always carry Slow, and I have never once cast Hypnotic Pattern. So that's it. One man's opinion. If you agree, disagree, please let me know in the comments. Regardless, thank you so much for watching. This has been the Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Power Gamers Tactics Room. I'm your host, Bill Braun Bafflestone. See you next time.